Love listening to the Blue Monday podcast? Well, your support is very much appreciated, and for as long as we're producing this podcast, we'll never charge you to listen to us. But if you do want to join others in supporting us financially, you can do just that via the Acast supporters feature. It's up to you how much or how little you want to give, and there is no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description. The money you donate may or may not be put towards Joe Fair's football shirt collection. Terms and conditions apply. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. This is part 2 of the 2019-20 season review, and I'm delighted to be joined by a proud Essex man who has managed to keep his tan topped up this summer despite the closure of the tanning salons. How are you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Mikey. Yeah, I'm the tanning salons may be shut, but the beach is open. So yeah, been spending a lot of time lounging around near the seaside with the appropriate social distancing.
Have you been in that holy water that Matt Holland used to bathe in?
I haven't. No, the kids have. The cross, I can't keep the kids out of it. And I know that Joe's family were down at the weekend and they were paddling in and out. I was saying to him that we should be charging the waters at Lords or something for people to come and miraculously solve their ailments by in and out the paddling pool.
Brilliant. And have you been watching much of the Premier League? I saw Jake Humphrey won the Premier League last week, I believe.
Yeah, I've certainly been watching more than I did do beforehand, and I've just noticed that Newcastle scored a fourth against Bournemouth. So crikey, there's 4 or 5 teams at the bottom there that are scrabbling to get out of it, aren't they?
It's mad because Bournemouth, despite losing 4-0 against Newcastle, are above Norwich, who are possibly the finest ever team to go down.
I don't understand it. As you say, we keep hearing that they're great, and I keep checking their league table, and their results, to be fair. So something must be awry somewhere along the line. There's an algorithm out of sorts somewhere.
Right, let's. So we've already managed to mention Norwich about a minute and a half in, which will please our listeners above the border. So before we start on the review, some good news came out of the club today with Luke Wolfenden signing a 4-year contract. This is just good news all round, isn't it? There's no negative spin on this one.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, obviously, you've seen some of the comments saying, well, it's only delaying the inevitable, etc. Well, so be it. But at least you're protecting an asset, aren't you? He's not going to be leaving on the cheap, having signed a 4-year deal. It protects us. If someone does come in, then you're pointing to a 4-year contract and saying, pay it up or pay us the appropriate amount. So yeah, it's just protecting an asset, if nothing else. Just gives everyone a bit of comfort that he's going to hang around for a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, he's a good player, and I was just checking his stats earlier, and I saw that he was born after France '98, which made me feel old, Craig.
Well, I was born after '74, so we're all born after a World Cup of some sort.
Both in our 20s. So, right. So picking up. So if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to part 1, just duck straight out of this and listen to part 1 with Benjamin Bloom, Joe Fairs, and
David
Diamond. How on earth could I forget?
Yeah. If you want to listen to some good news and some wins, then by all means, please head over to part 1.
Yeah, they did get the better end of the draw there, didn't they, with that? And part 3, of course, will be coming up with Rich and Seb and a special guest. Of course, we'll leave it to them to announce who that is. But yeah, so picking up from where the lads left off in part 1, we've just been knocked off top spot by Peterborough after a 2-0 defeat at home to Rotherham. And we had very different journeys, but we both headed down to Southend with Ipswich looking to end a run of 2 league defeats against Sol Campbell's Southend, and a day in the end described by many as the away day of the season, Craig.
Yeah, Well, as you say, yeah, we went down via different routes, but I saw yourself and Joe giving it large and lording it over the kids of Southend in that corner section, having forced them to remove that tarpaulin they'd put in between the sets of fans. I was at Fleetwood as well, and I think Fleetwood, in terms of performance and things, I thought Fleetwood was a more rounded performance, and obviously Fleetwood being where they were in the league and bits and pieces like that. But yeah, there were over 2,000, I think, at Southend, weren't there?
Yeah, it was a good one. A couple of decent goals from James Norwood. No, James Norwood. Yeah, he did get two.
Yeah.
Both assisted by Caden Jackson, because
yes.
I seem to remember we were talking before that game about that partnership and whether they were maybe getting a little bit greedy because they were both scoring goals and it was maybe becoming too much of a competition between them. They really linked up well that day, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and you could just see the start. Well, not necessarily the start of a partnership, but a far better understanding due to the amount of games that they were playing together. Because Keane wasn't quite fit yet, was he? So we were playing those two far more regularly than we ended up doing. And as you say, they combined really nicely for both of Norwood's goals, and both of Norwood's goals were pretty instinctive finishes as well.
So yeah, he played a flat 4-4-2 that day, and I think the biggest surprise was that Thomas Holy was dropped for the first time, and Will Norris made his league debut. We still had Vincent Young at right back. I think that might have been his last appearance for us. Did he think at the time? So first of all, how did you feel about the Well, I mean, it wasn't a rotation by this point, but how did you feel about Norris coming in goal in place of Holy?
Well, it was a strange one, as you say. When it happened, it wasn't sort of on anyone's radar that it was going to be a thing that was going to happen. And I think, didn't Lambert say after the event that it was more a case of just getting some miles into Norris and just getting him a bit of match experience and bits and pieces like that? Well, yeah, as we'll see over the course of the next however many games it is that we're doing here, that there was a little bit of chopping and changing when it came to goalkeepers. But yeah, that was strange. I don't really remember Holy making too many errors to deserve to be dropped in the first instance, to be fair.
No, it was definitely a bit of a shock. And just quickly on Vincent Young, on his return to Essex.
Yeah,
that was the last we saw of him, because he went off for groin surgery. But we worried about losing Vincent Young in the short term because of just how good he was.
Yeah, well, he went hobbling off, didn't he, in the second half down in that far corner, and then, as you say, he went off to Qatar, I think, didn't he, for surgery, and it's one of those niggling injuries, and I think the guys spoke about it in part one, whether he was rushed back in the first instance, and the thing is, he was so crucial to the way that we were playing, wasn't he? And you could tell that when he wasn't quite at it, it made a big difference. I think in that Rotherham match, the guys were mentioning that he didn't look quite at it, and he was so instrumental to the way that we were playing in that first batch of games. Not just through the goals he was scoring, but the performances in general, and the way we were set up with him and Garbutt as our attacking force down the wings. And when you get injuries like groins, these just little niggly injuries that take time to heal, and you just never know really how long players are going to be out for. But crikey, we've missed him, didn't we?
Absolutely. And we went up to Rochdale on the following Tuesday. You went up to that one, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
it's a long way north.
To be fair, it was, not going to get all middle-aged about it, but it was a very good journey up there. I think it was about that time that they'd opened up that little section of the A14, so it took a little chunk off your journey on the way up there. But I went with a friend of mine, Tim, and we went to Fleetwood, and we went to Rochdale, and what we were finding is we were just going to these northern chip shops, basically, because they both got chip shops out the back of the away stand. So
brilliant.
You go and look at these menus, it's like going to a foreign country. You think, what the hell is a rag pudding? Well, no idea, but we better have it. It's like 30p for that and some gravy sort of thing. So we were just doing a tour of northern chip shops at
Fantastic.
one point in the season. But
Are
yeah,
you a gravy man or a curry sauce man?
Well, it depends how far north I go, but yeah, very much gravy. If it's on the menu, I'll have gravy. Not that KFC muck, but proper northern gravy. But yeah, so I stood with Rich and Mullet actually for Rochdale. Met with those guys there, and
sorry to hear that.
Phil Whelan was there in the crowd with his son with the town fans.
Oh, great stuff.
I think I think he did live up in near Middlesbrough, but whether he's still up that way. But yeah, he'd obviously ventured south to come and watch town. I had another friend who was standing chatting to him for the match.
Brilliant stuff, and they saw an Ipswich victory despite Gwion Edwards being in at right back and Flynn Downs being out suspended. 1-0, kept a clean sheet. I think Alan Judge came in on the left that night.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
So Lambert made 3 changes, but we had a couple of players playing out of position, but we were just carrying on what we were doing, weren't we? At the early part of the season, winning 1-0 without particularly pulling up any trees.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, as you say, Judge came left midfield, and then, as you say again, Edwards was out of position. And he did look a little bit fish out of water then, because it was sort of the first time we'd been trying that. And again, as you say, we had a little spate of games whereby the opposition was having a decent chance or 1 or 2 decent chances and not taking them, not capitalising on them, and we were getting a chance and taking it, and then the opposition wasn't good enough to basically get back into the game, and that was definitely one of these games. And they had a couple of good chances at 0-0, but then, to be fair, Garbutt hit the bar, didn't he, with a long range shot, and I think Wolfenden hit the post with a header from a corner. But yeah, there was a bit of a reliance on other teams not converting their chances and us converting ours. But 1-0 away from home on a Tuesday night, then you'd take it, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And then we're still in October at this stage, but we're playing an FA Cup game at Portman Road. The indignity of the FA Cup first round. And Lambert showed how serious he was about the competition as he made 10 changes, with Norris the only one keeping his place. And what was the one outcome from this game that you really didn't want, aside from injuries, Craig?
Yeah, well, me personally, I didn't bother, but I'd imagine Paul Lambert didn't really want a replay, and hence why I think he didn't bring Norwood on until like the 86th or 88th minute or something like that, which sort of told its own story. I think we had, let's say, 10 changes. We had Dazelle playing right midfield for part of it. We had Dobra up front with Keane, and the ball, I don't think, stuck once to Will Keane. NCR obviously conceded a penalty, which Norris saved, to be fair.
Which Norris did save brilliantly, yeah.
And Walker carried on his bizarre one-man campaign against the North Stand, didn't he? Cupping his ears and giving it large to, frankly, bemused lower North, because obviously the upper North wasn't open, was it?
No. Great days, but yeah, good goal from Andre Dazelle. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't particularly confident that we were going to go to Lincoln and get a result, so I was in the same camp as Lambert. I wasn't particularly impressed by us managing to draw that 1-1-1, but yeah, a hell of a week this one, because we then go to Colchester on the Tuesday night, back in Stiletto country, and conceding a freak goal. Was this another wasted evening, Craig?
Yeah, Jason Cundy goal, wasn't it? This one, very similar. But it was a funny period of the year, wasn't it? There were no real games to get excited. Not saying that there are many games to get excited about anyway. Once
we got Rochdale out of the way, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They got the bright lights of Blackpool just on the horizon there, enticing us. But we had three cup games in a row, didn't we? And obviously the teams that we were putting out were second string team. So it was a bit of a slog to get yourself up for these games as a spectator, certainly. But yeah, the Coley match, the EFL matches, I went to them, and they were training ground pace matches. Certainly the ones at Portman Road. I know Dave and the guys were talking about Hughes strolling through one of the games, possibly the Gillingham one. Well, yeah, because they were maybe not even under 23 pace matches, the ones that we saw at home. The Coley one was obviously allowed them to have their cup final against us, didn't it? And Falami started that one, didn't he? It was a bit of a bright note, considering the injury he had. And also we had a couple of other debuts for the youngsters. But yeah, it's just a freak goal. Guy managed to lob a 7'8" goalkeeper from 50 yards.
And did this result? Did this make the leasing.com trophy harder for us? Did we finish second in the end, and that meant we had to play away?
That's it. Yeah. So we but luckily we're still in the south section, so it's not as if we're going to have to travel far if we do get an away game. So yeah, I don't know who Cole you got in the end. I couldn't honestly say who they got in the next round, but it meant they've got an away game the next leg, but I don't know if we ever took it that seriously. And a lot of people were of the same opinion that let's treat it. Let's give the kids some games until such time as we get a little bit closer to the knockout stages, and then we can start taking it a bit more seriously. And I think not wishing to encroach on the next guy's pod, but once we did get to the next round, then I was a little bit more disappointed to spoiler alert on the next result.
Absolutely. Well, we do have the next one is in our section, actually. That was the Peterborough away, which comes a little bit later.
Sorry.
But how bloody typical would it have been if we had got to the leasing.com final?
Watching it on telly, yeah.
Yeah. Finally get a trip to Wembley and can't even go. So yeah, there was no Saturday game, to put it right, due to our vast quantity of international stars. We again postponed our match. I can't actually remember. Didn't write it down who we were due to play, because it wasn't the Wickham one.
Oxford
away, was it?
Oxford away, yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up playing them in the downpour later on in the season. Yeah. But we did have our FA Cup replay a few days later. But this time, the unthinkable happens, as we first of all win an FA Cup tie for the first time in 15 attempts, and Alan Judge finally gets his goal. And I don't know about you, but I thought that this could end up being a big moment in our season.
Yeah, well, I think it was after the Rochdale match, he sort of came out and had a bit of a not heart to heart, I was going to say, but he sort of opened up a little bit, didn't he, about the fact that he was frustrated himself by how well he perceived that he'd been playing and things like that, and that he was hoping that that performance against Rochdale was the start of something from his perspective, from a personal point of view. And yeah, it's taken a while for him to get off the mark, isn't it? And it was frustrating, wasn't he, this season as a whole? Well, not the only one in that midfield, but the clamour for him to sign permanently, and then the trepidation when QPR was sniffing around earlier in the season, and the crowd shouting for him to stay and things. Surely you've got to be expecting a player of his calibre to be producing far more than he did. And I'm sure it's far more frustrating from his perspective than it is from ours. But I don't think it's out of order to be asking for more from him over the course of the whole season.
Absolutely, and I think that he would certainly have expected more from himself as well. So we were finally back in league action the following Saturday at home to Blackpool. At this stage, we've dropped to second, and the post-international blues continue. Norris returns in goal, and we go with 4-3-3 with Danasien finally getting a chance in the league. Nolan joined Skews and Downs in midfield, with Rowan Edwards supposedly playing wide of Jackson. Despite there's extra bodies in midfield, it's actually a bit of a Jay Spearing masterclass as we eventually draw 2-2. What did you make of this one?
Well, sort of as we were talking about there about the cup games, the knock-on effect of having this batch of cup games and calling off the Oxford match was that I counted them up earlier on. I had the joy of looking through the extended highlights of these matches, so nobody else had to. There were seven players that started the Blackpool match. They hadn't played for almost 3 weeks. Jackson, I've got here, Jackson, Wolfenden, Chambers, Garbutt, Rowe, Skews and Nolan were all starting the Blackpool match and hadn't played for the thick end of 3 weeks. Well, that can't. I'm not 100% convinced that players don't want to play. Do they want that amount of time off in the middle of a season? Is it keeping the players fresh? I'd argue
absolutely
it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I regularly go 3 weeks without playing during my seasons because the pitches are underwater. And I know that it isn't really comparable, but I always feel rusty when I come back, and I miss it at the weekends. And I'm sure that they're getting paid handsomely and the standards slightly better, I'm sure that it must do their head in not playing.
Exactly. It affects things like their timing, doesn't it? Of timing of runs and timing of shots. And if you're Jackson and you've been playing okay, you just want to play again, don't you? You just want to play again. And it's not as if they didn't. I'm not saying they had to start every match between Rochdale and Blackpool, but just give them some minutes. Give them an hour here or half an hour there, just anything. But I say to have that chunk, 7 out of 11 players not having played for 3 weeks, well, you're going to get a disjointed, rustier performance than you should.
Indeed. You've already mentioned your journey to Rochdale and how smooth it was because of the new section of the A14. I drove up to Ipswich after work for the visit of Wickham Wanderers because this is a top of the table clash, a massive game, and I think it took me 4 hours and I missed the start. Thomas Holy was back in goal, seemed out of nowhere. How did you feel about, I mean, we've already spoken about it, but to see Holy come out and then Norris come in, were you pleased to see Holy back in goal, or were you thinking, I'd rather he didn't tamper with this quite so much?
Well, I think, I don't know whether he came out and said it, but the feeling we sort of got was, well, it was horses for courses when it came to Wickham. They're going to be a bit more direct. They're going to be slinging it into the box, lots of high balls, and obviously having a goalkeeper the size of Holy rather than Norris may help in that regard. So, yeah, possibly it's not, but it's been something that apart from the Bart seasons, once he eventually took over from Gherkin, it's just been a thing that we've gone through for the last however many years, isn't it? We just haven't really ever had a nailed on, I say apart from those Bart years, a nailed on number one that the manager seems to hang his hat on. I don't think the fans have ever really clamoured for change in the goalkeeping. Well, we may get across it in a few games' time, but the fans haven't been shouting for a change of goalkeeper, but they say the managers seem keen to do so. And it wasn't just that; there were 4 more changes, weren't there? I think from the Blackpool game, and also a change of formation. We went 3 at the back, but I didn't actually make it to this game because it's that was a night of my wife's birthday that day, and I may have got away with it, but it was also coincided with a school performance for my boy of Guys and Dolls, so a double whammy there. So instead I was actually watching it on my mobile whilst in the crowd.
What, Guys and Dolls?
Yeah, I split that one round. I was watching the match on my phone whilst Guys and Dolls was going on in the background, but luck certainly wasn't a lady for Ipswich that evening.
Very good. I mean, I would say that you actually missed out in a way because it was one of the craziest performances we've ever seen from the officials.
Yeah.
We had a perfectly good goal ruled out after a long discussion between the referee, who had a better view of the goal, and his assistant, who I think was running the line at Stowmarket Town only a few days later. I mean,
He's a local guy, wasn't he?
I mean, it was laughable. We weren't. I mean, whether we deserve to win that game is another conversation. But did the fact that this top of the table clash ended 0-0 and there was this ridiculous officiating, did that really sum up League One for you at that stage?
Yeah, we were warned about it. We were warned about refs. Various fans were saying, you're not going to believe the standard of refereeing in this division when you come down, and I fully appreciate it doesn't make it any easier to accept. But and as I say, I was watching it on my phone on mute, just in my lap while occasionally looking up, and I saw the goal go in, and Chambers went away and celebrating in front of the North Stand. You think, happy days. The camera pans back to the halfway line. The ball's on the centre spot. The players are all getting ready for kickoff, and then sort of nothing happens. And the camera suddenly shoots off again and is looking at the lino, talking to the ref. You think, oh, hang on a second, what's going on here? But you were there, so I dread to think what the atmosphere was like subsequent to that.
Well, I was actually in the lower Churchman's that night, so yeah, it wasn't particularly raucous down there, and I didn't have the greatest view of what was going on, but it seemed to me like the linesman was very, very keen to have his moment and make his decision, and that was another example of us not beating the teams around us.
Yeah, but we didn't. I don't think we had a shot on target, did we? That match, which I've got it written down here. I think it may have been from those with the day's report, but then there was the penalty as well, wasn't there? Which wasn't. Chambers dragged him outside the area and was given as the penalty, which would have been the same linesman who'd have been over in the same half for the second half.
And I think they failed to send off the player who'd done the foul as well.
Chambers, wasn't it? Yeah, Chambers pulled him back, didn't he? I don't know whether it was he wasn't attempting to get the ball at all, was he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it should have. I think shirt. because of the confusion about whether it was in or out, I think he forgot to send Chambers off, because really it should have been a free kick and a red card rather than a penalty and no red card. But yeah, I'm sure that we spoke about all this at length in the midweek show in November or whenever it was. But luckily for us, more cup games are around the corner. First, a trip to Birmingham to face Coventry, and this time Lambert only makes 6 changes. One of them sees Norris returning goal again, and you think, well, Holy kept a clean sheet against Wickham. He saved a penalty. Norris is now the cup goalkeeper. Fair enough. But anyway, we make quite a good fist of it for much of the game. Will Keane scores, and we're getting a bit giddy about the third round before Callum O'Hare flicks one in for Coventry. And once again, we're heading for a replay and the worst possible outcome. Yeah.
Again, it was 6 changes. It was another change of formation, wasn't it? We went 4-3-3, having played 3-5-2 against Wickham. We went 4-3-3, I think, against Coventry in the cup.
Is it 4-3-3?
Sorry,
4-5-1. 4-5-1, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it is. No, you're right. Although, to be fair, I know we'll talk about it in a couple of games' time. The league game was a bit different, to be fair. But yeah, the cup game. So Downs was captain, wasn't he, in this one as well? They made Downs captain. I think we did all right. I think it was a fair result in the end. But we scored from a short corner, didn't we? Dazelle knocked it short to Judge, who whipped it into Keane.
Yeah, Keane showed to everyone that he can head the ball.
Yeah,
he's gone now, isn't he? But a really puzzling player for me, because talented, really good in the air when he's facing the opposition goal. Terrible when he's got his back to goal.
Yeah. We didn't maybe play to his strengths, but he's for a guy, as you say, a guy who's so obviously talented, he needed to impose himself and affect games a hell of a lot more than he did, didn't he? We spoke about it actually on one of the more recent pods, saying it'd be interesting to see where his career takes him. If we don't, obviously the chance we may re-sign and things like that, but you get a feeling that he may end up heading back north, and it could end up doing a half decent job for someone in a division higher, possibly. But we didn't see the best of him. I'd say just a frustrating player, because he is such a lovely, elegant player when it does click, but it just didn't click anything like enough.
So moving on to another cup game, just a few days later, Peterborough away, and we draw 1-1. Prisbeck's in goal, and he makes himself the hero in the penalty shootout. And I think Barry Cotter, on the forgotten man, on his 21st birthday, tucks in the winner. And I felt quite good about this one, because it was using the leasing.com trophy for what we wanted it to be. Yeah,
100%. I remember I think I did the pod either that week or midweek or the weekend, and exactly what we said, saying that was just a great result, and it was a great fillip for those kids that played. I think Skews played, didn't he? Norwood played, because he had the shot which led to our goal in open play during the match. But just to go away to Peterborough, and I appreciate Peterborough would have made changes themselves, but Issa and Tony came on during the course of the match. But for these kids, and they are kids, to go away and get a result, and through virtue of a penalty shootout as well. All fair play to him. I say we got exactly what we needed out of it, and this was the one that led on to our local leg in the next round, obviously.
So by now we're in the period where we seem to be playing Coventry every couple of days, to Rich Woodward's delight. And Lambert makes just one change from the team who drew there in the FA Cup. Norris kept his place in goal, which to me was a little bit baffling at the time. But Will Keane clearly likes playing at St Andrews. He scores again. We looked really good in that first half, didn't we, before a sluggish second half, and we ended up holding on for the point.
So yeah, we as you say, we made one change, but the formation actually worked, and it was more of a 4-3-3 for that game. We had Edwards and Judge either side of Keane, and Keane was dropping deep, but Edwards and Judge were getting past him. Dizelle had a good first half. Nolan and Downs were in midfield with him. Skews was on the bench, certainly to start with. And just that midfield three worked well. They were interchanging with each other. I say the wide guys were getting forward and getting past Keane. Keane was dropping deep and sort of linking with Dizelle, who then knocked balls further on to either of the wingers who were getting forward. So yeah, we should have been more than 1-0 up at half time, which we were. I think Keane hit the post, didn't he, with another header, actually. I think they had two sort of similar type headers, and he hit the post from one. But then for some reason in the second half, Lambert he changed it. He took off both I was just saying that both the wide men were playing well. He took them both off and replaced, well, certainly Skews came on. I think Jackson came on as well, and went more of a 4-4-2 with a diamond, and we just lost all of our width. We had poor old Flynn Downs was having to try and maraud down the left, and Dizelle was having to do similar on the right. I think, well, we sort of just completely negated ourselves, having such a great first half. For some reason, there was a technical master plan hatched on the sidelines, which just completely negated us, and we just didn't get back into the game. Once Coventry scored.
Was this the classic case of Paul Lambert's second guessing himself, maybe trying too hard?
Yeah. Just I remember saying actually in one of my first pods, like during the autumn, actually, it was saying I hope he's as clever as he thinks he is, and I think it's pretty safe to say he's not as clever as he thinks he is, because he's made a right pig's ear of everything to date.
But we were still second, incredibly, after this game, and we completed our epic Coventry trilogy in the FA Cup in that midweek. Understandably, perhaps Lambert makes 8 changes. One of them being Barry Cotter coming in at right back. Enciala also played. Hughes played. Judge is back, but this time out on the wing. And Jackson and Norwood are back together. We were just completely outclassed in this one, weren't we, Craig? Maybe that was when people started to sit up and take notice of Coventry this season. Yeah,
they looked good, Coventry, that match certainly. They just looked well drilled. I don't think they made as many changes as we did, but they were playing. They played a 4-2-3-1, and they just looked a real slick outfit. Although I think we had Skews and Hughes in the centre of our 4-4-2, and they both looked as rusty as hell. Hughes looked way off the pace, and obviously that probably helped matters. But yeah, Coventry just play. You could just see that they were playing balls to areas where they just knew someone was going to be. They didn't necessarily need to look up and find someone there. They just knew that someone's going to be there because that's the way they play, and they knew that at a certain point in time when the ball's in this area of the pitch, there will be someone making an overlap or cutting inside or whatever it happened to be. They just looked a lot better than us, and I say a lot more honed, should we say? And poor old
would a well-drilled Ipswich team have gone up this season?
Yeah, I think so.
You think with the players that we've got, if they were well drilled and we stuck to a formation?
Yeah. I think well, there you go. Your last point is probably the most valid. Is just stuck to a formation, because how many games have we gone through so far? 1, 2, 3, 8. Say, I reckon we've had 4 different formations in those 8 matches. Whether it be 3 at the back, 1 up front with 1 off, 3 up front, whatever it happens to be. We're not only chopping and changing personnel, we're changing formation. It's something everyone on the pod has spoken about time and time again. I just don't see why it's not beyond the. You just keep it simple. Surely in this division, we have got good enough players. They're not going to be world beaters. We haven't got a startling striker who's going to score us 20 goals a season, but we have got competent players who, if they were playing more regularly and getting an understanding with each other and the partnerships on the pitch, etc., there's no way in the world we shouldn't have been top 6 at the very, very least. Certainly from the platform that we'd managed to find ourselves in. So it just seemed to fall apart once more players became available. Once Keane got fit.
Yeah, the cruel thing is that we didn't even need playoff form from the second third of the season onwards, did we? We just needed mid-table form, and that would have been enough.
Avoid relegation
place.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. As I say,
at the time, I thought these cup games were really useful, and I know that I said I didn't want the replays, but I thought it because even when we were winning games at the start of the season, we hadn't worked out a formation or a style of play, and I thought that this is just giving Lambert plenty of opportunities to stumble across something, and while also getting the fringe players fit, because we had quite a big squad for League One this season, didn't we? But alas, he just tied himself up in knots, didn't he?
Yeah, that's exactly it. As you say, we had a large squad for that division, and that's what in the end perversely has hampered us, isn't it? Yeah, whether he's done it to keep the squad happy, or whether he's done it because in his own mind he's trying to keep everyone fit, but to my eyes he was doing exactly the opposite. He was taking the edge off of players rather than wrapping them in cotton wool and keeping them fresh. These guys need, well, as has transpired, they just needed to be playing to keep up the levels of performance that we were seeing, and by having chunks of the season where you're not playing, you're just losing that edge and becoming more rusty rather than becoming fresher. As I say, he just seemed to complicate matters far more than he needed to. And we're talking about Coventry and bigging them up because they kept it simple. Everyone knew what they were doing. They had a formation which I'm sure they didn't veer from too much during the course of the season. They just trusted their formation and trusted the system and the style and stuck with it. And Christ, we all know Lambert had a hell of a long run up at this season, tail end of last season, where we seem to have stuck to a formation. And then, as Joe's eloquently said more than one occasion, he just confused himself over the course of pre-season. And then we've got a lopsided squad in terms of the formation that we seem to want to end up playing rather than the one that we played for the tail end of last season. We don't have the squad that's capable of playing 4-4-2 or 3-5-2. And just as you say, he just seemed to tie himself up in knots over and over again. Certainly during this autumn period that we're covering here, it was horrendous.
But we were still in second spot as we finally had a run of league games in succession. I think it was four pretty big league games in 15 days over Christmas, and I think we were talking about whether we take 6 points or 7 points from those games. It was Bristol Rovers up first. Lambert again shuffles his pack. Cole Skews captained the side from right back in this game. Dazelle joined Downs and Nolan in midfield. And I think this is the first time that we see Keane, Norwood and Jackson in a front three. Did you ever expect that trio to work together in tandem?
No, it came out of nowhere, didn't it? And it didn't work. Keane played through the middle, and I don't think it would be an issue for Jackson. I think Jackson could well play that wide attacking player, but Norwood looked like a fish out of water, stuck out on the left. And this, it just smacks of desperation, and just chucking all your attacking players onto the pitch at the same time and just hoping that between the three of them something will come off and we'll be fine. But it didn't work. We were 1-0 down, weren't we? After 4 or 5 minutes, we were 2-0 down after about 20 minutes, and the crowd started to turn. A lot of huffing and puffing, and just you could tell that the three guys who were up front hadn't really had any chance to play together. There was no understanding between the three of them. It just didn't work.
I think the goal that we scored actually emphasises your point about Jackson being comfortable in a wide position and Norwood being comfortable between the posts, because it was a decent goal, that one, wasn't it? I think Jackson took a really early cross from out wide on the left, and Norwood got his head on it in the middle in the centre forward position. But we just didn't create enough chances like that in that game.
Well, we didn't create enough chances like that over the course of the whole season, really, did we? And you're absolutely right in highlighting that goal. And again, I remember talking about it on the pod at the time. It was just all instinctive stuff, wasn't it? Because that was the one where Downs flicked it over their player to Garbutt, and Garbutt first time flicked it with the outside of his foot down the wing to Jackson, who then first time put a hell of a cross in, didn't he, with his wrong foot, away swinging left foot cross. And Norwood's rushing in, first time header, and it was literally 3 touches of the ball, and we've gone from the halfway line down the wing into the middle and scored a goal. And you think we're just so ponderous and cautious with the ball, when you think, well, guys, if you can score goals like that, just let the shackles off and play a few first time balls. Just too many just wanting that extra touch or extra 2 touches, and it frustrates the hell out of me, and I'm sure it must frustrate the hell out of the strikers as well, who are probably making runs waiting for a ball that's very seldom ends up where it should.
Just one thing I forgot to pick up on this: Thomas Holy was back in goal for that one, and despite us losing, we stayed second. So we went down to Portsmouth, still in the top 2. And what does he do this time? It's a 3-5-2 formation. Norris is back in goal. Enciala's back in there with Chambers and Wolfenden, and Edwards and Garbutt playing as wing backs, and James Norwood joined Will Keane up front. And Norwood had a couple of chances in this one. In the lashing rain, we lost 1-0, and I got absolutely soaked to the bone.
Was this the one where you were drinking strong lager on the train, Mikey?
Yeah, I was drinking strong lager on the train down, and I drank stronger lager in the pub before the game. And yeah, I was going out in London that night, and yeah, it knocked me for 6. It was no surprise to anyone that I was really ill over Christmas after that day.
But you say that we were second, but we were about 7 points behind Wickham now. We were falling behind.
Yeah, I think we probably had a couple of games in hand though, which are great, aren't they? That's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when on the sort of run of form we were on. But it was as you said before the Bristol Rovers game. It was that period of time where everyone was like, right, we've got 4 games here. We need to be looking, well, if we can average about 2 points a game, that'd be a decent Christmas. And then you get rid of Bristol Rovers, right? You didn't get any out of that. Crikey, right? We've now got Portsmouth, Gillingham and Lincoln, right? Well, we need 2 wins and a draw, to a minimum, really, 2 wins and a draw. If we can get 2 wins, we might be all right. You think, crikey, this is the teams below us that starting to group up behind us, and Wickham certainly aren't falling away any above us. And yeah, Ellis Harrison gave us the run around that day, didn't he? As well?
I was going to bring that up. Was that maybe is that us being experts after the event, because he didn't really tear it up in his first season with us, but was that maybe him sending a message to Paul Lambert that he's more than good enough in League One?
Yeah, I think he was trying to send a message to Chambers, wasn't he? Because he cleaned him out after about 10 seconds, didn't he? And had pretty much a running battle with him for the entire match, which ended up in Chambers being the one that got sent off in the end. But
yeah, so I thought that day, I was like, blimey, Ellis Harrison's really not popular amongst Ipswich players, and I was like, I wonder what's going on there. Assuming that there was a breakdown in relationship between him and the rest of the squad, maybe when he was still at Ipswich. But it turns out that he's actually really popular, and Chambers is one of his best mates.
Oh, and really?
They were just going at it like mates do when they play against each other, I suppose.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I say they certainly went at each other, because he cleaned Chambers out, didn't he, after about 10-15. He got booked for it as well. So he was on a booking for 90 minutes. And to be and talking about people getting sent off, this is one that NCR didn't he? Got subbed after about half an hour just to stop him from getting sent off.
Yeah, it's they weren't conditions for NCR that day. Although I'm not really entirely sure what conditions do suit NCR. Who knows? We might see a player next season when he's back. But right, going into the Boxing Day game with Gillingham, so we've lost at home to Bristol Rovers and we've lost away at Portsmouth. Gillingham at home is looking like that's the one that we have to win.
Must win territory, yeah.
There was a bumper crowd, as they say in Speedway, at Portman Road. Steve Evans is back, fresh from his gout-inducing Christmas dinner. And Enciala's returns, keeps his place, I suppose, even though he was subbed off. And Donacien is in the same back four as him as we move to a 4-4-2. It was quite a calamitous first half performance from those two, but we somehow kept a clean sheet. We end up drawing 0-0. I can't really remember much from this one. Can you?
Not much. I think, excuse me, this was when Sears was on the bench, wasn't he? The Messiah was back and was going to...
Yeah, the white knight of Ipswich Town.
Single-handedly back to the Championship. Well, Chambers was suspended, wasn't he? Obviously from Portsmouth, so that's why Enciala was playing, I assume. But again, yeah, as you say, we were sort of tentative at the back. Enciala and Donacien as a 50% of your back four probably isn't ideal. We had made the wrong decisions up front. There was a chance, wasn't there, in front of Churchlands where Jackson pulled it back for Norwood. Norwood was running into goal. He pulled it back behind him, and that was pretty much all we did. And again, I don't think we had any shots on target in that match, which, as you say, for a bumper crowd with a bumper away manager in the dugout, there were boos at half time, weren't there? And it was just one of those horrible games that we were unfortunately all too familiar with, certainly at home. Crikey, our poor old home fans don't get much in the way of entertainment or results, and haven't done for a few years, have they?
No, you're not wrong. And it always seems Boxing Day games always seem to be drab these days as well, Portman Road. But the positive was the clean sheet, and we actually moved back up to second because we dropped to third after the Portsmouth defeat. But I think Wickham somebody lost that weekend, which meant that, or over Boxing Day, which meant that we went back up to second. I think you look confused, but
No. I think
I'm
I'm
pretty
just
sure that
checking.
one's right.
You're right. Yeah.
According to all of these stats come from Renegade Statman, by the way. Big thanks to him, although he probably won't be listening, for providing those for us. But yeah, we've just kept a clean sheet. We've moved up to second, and we're going up to Lincoln. Maybe we can keep another clean sheet, Craig.
Well, quite, but this we really are now in must-win territory. I know we were in must-win territory for Bristol Rovers and Portsmouth, and subsequently for Gillingham. But with 1 point in our back pocket, and going away to Lincoln, then another clean sheet would be nice, wouldn't it? And maybe scrape a 1-0 victory and disappear back down the A14. And it's funny actually, after the Gillingham, I noted it down here, after the Gillingham match, that's when Lambert started these. If they want to get another manager, fine. It was those sort of comments started coming out.
Yeah.
And I think there was a similar quote from Norris after Portsmouth saying that we had a good, honest chat. And when you start getting those sort of comments coming out of the change room, and there's going to be another one after this match. It's empty words, isn't it? It's hot air. But I'll let you go through the team for Lincoln if you want the changes.
So if you can talk through them, I've got written down that we made 3 changes. Norris is very much in goal for this one. I haven't got written down. We returned to a 4-4-2, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And Enciala was dropped completely out of the squad. So he'd started the previous 2 matches. He started at Portsmouth and he started against Gillingham, and he didn't even get into the match day squad for Lincoln. And it did solidify our defence, thankfully. So
I think Enciala was the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if Enciala had played, we might have only conceded 4. I think we had Dazelle and Downs in central midfield as well for this one. I can't remember if Skews was injured. But yeah, it was just
one of those games, wasn't it, where we actually, you couldn't take your eyes off it, even partly because it was horrendous what was going on at the back, but we always looked dangerous. We were actually, maybe because we were always behind, but we were attacking with purpose throughout the game, weren't we?
Yeah, first half we played okay. First half we were playing some half decent stuff, and the crowd were getting behind us. Garbett scored, didn't he, from a free kick?
Free kick.
And it's just that the timing of their second goal just before half time, when Norris had his brain fart and came herring out of his goal and got lobbed. Great goal, to be fair. It was a nice finish, but that just set the wheels in motion for the second half.
Absolutely. So a 5-3 defeat away at Lincoln to wrap up 2019. So this is what would have been, I think, the halfway point of the season, and we've actually dropped down to 4th. We haven't won a game in all competitions in 10 matches. So as we hand over to Seb and to Rich and their star guest, and you'd have been forgiven for thinking that Lambert's job was uncertain, wouldn't you, Craig?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I think you'd think his position's being seriously questioned, precarious. I would suggest. He's going to do well to last until the new year. Certainly with the run, as you say, the run that we've been on. We started off talking about Southend and Rochdale, which we won. They were the last match. That was the last match, Rochdale. That was on Bonfire Night. It was on the 5th of November. We didn't win another league game until the second week of January.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, our listeners and viewers will have to tune in to part 3 to find out if Paul Lambert keeps his job. Surely he can't. So yeah, that will be released possibly by the end of this week, possibly early next week. There's plenty of other Blue Monday podcasts on the channel. There's been plugs galore for all of the Jim Magilton interviews, Tommy Miller, Pablo Caniago, Matt Holland. And plus we've got the new home shirt has been released. Craig, you joined Rich and Joe yesterday to do a bit of a nerdy kit review. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, a bit of a Gokwan précis of the kit. Yeah,
they had to get the Essex man on, didn't they, to talk about the fashion?
Bit of style, yes, absolutely. How well it goes with a certain shade of mahogany tan and things like that. Yeah, I quite like it. As I said on the pod, I like simple. I like simple things, but I like simple kits, and yeah, it's a decent nod to the anniversary.
And yeah, you say you like simple kits. Doesn't sound like the away one's going to be particularly to your taste.
Well, yes. Well, we may have some inside information on that, but I'll let the person that's got the inside information spill those particular beans.
Absolutely. So if you're listening on Acast, you might have heard me asking for your money before the podcast. If you're not, then if you go on the Acast app and click on the description of the show, you can see how you can donate to us if that's what you want to do. We're not going to come and find you if you don't. We're not going to stop doing the podcast either. So really, there's not much incentive, is there? So Craig, thank you so much for joining me to talk through this, probably the second best part of the season. In all honesty, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know. I think statistically, I think the guys either side of us. I know, we only had 2 wins, but yeah, they may get a few more in the third part. Who knows? But yeah, it just never got going, did it? This part of the season, it just tailed away when we just as you said, we didn't need to pull up any trees, having had the start we did, but sadly we just made it difficult for ourselves.
So just quickly before you go, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this beforehand, but could you pick out your favourite moment, your low point, and the best player from the second third of the season?
Of this little clutch of games.
Of this little section, yeah.
High point, crikey. Well, out of 2 wins, the rag pudding at Rochdale was a high point.
Yes.
But also,
what is a rag pudding?
Good question. I've had one, and I probably still couldn't tell you what it was. I assume it's the utensil it's cooked in rather than the ingredients that are used to create it. But yeah, so if it's not the rag pudding, it's you and Joe giving it full football factory at Roots Hall.
Best player
of this little clutch. Jesus Christ Almighty! Of 2 wins out of 18 matches. Wolfenden was pretty solid, wasn't he? I know we started off the pod talking about him. Wolfenden and Downs. For the age that these guys are, and for the, excuse my French, the shit show that they were surrounded by for the vast majority of this season, certainly through this little clutch of games. It speaks volumes of them as players and of characters to still come out of it with some semblance of credibility, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to suggest Wolfenden because of all of the changes that were going on around him. It seemed like he had a different right back or centre back partnership. Any particular low point? Was it probably the terrace at Lincoln, wasn't it, when we conceded the 5th?
Yeah, that got pretty angry around me at the end of that Lincoln match. But just the low point. Was there a particular single low point? Probably not. But it was just the erosion of confidence over the course of the autumn, and the performances that came out, culminating with Gillingham and Lincoln at the end of the year. Was pretty low.
I'll probably say my high point was having a picture of Stara Praman in the pub in Portsmouth before the game. I drank enough to be confident. The low point was queuing up to get into Fratton Station afterwards in the lashing rain. And yeah, I've already mentioned best player in that section for me. It's probably Wolfenden, maybe Nsiala for entertainment value. But I'll let you have the penultimate word, Craig. Is there anything you want to plug or anything you want to discuss before we go?
I don't think so, mate. I think we're all good. I think. Popmaster 10:30 BBC Radio 2 every weekday. If you want to stick your scores on Twitter, then we can have a little competition to see how everyone gets on.
Excellent. Okay, be careful what you wish for.